How to fix your reputation after military allegations. Reputation repair is not some cleanup project afterwards. It has to be part of the strategy from day one. Your reputation strategy has to match what you actually care about. And here's something that people do not think about enough. Not every reputational problem is the same. If you're facing military allegations right now, hear me clearly. You do not just need somebody who will fight hard against the government. You need a strategy that protects your future, your credibility, and your reputation from day one. How to fix your reputation after military allegations. One of the hardest truths about military allegations is this. It takes almost nothing for someone to accuse you of something, and once they do, people look at you completely differently. You can be a phenomenal service member for 15 years, strong reputation, strong evaluations, solid career. Then one allegation hits and overnight people start acting like they don't know who you are anymore, like you're the plague or like you have COVID. That is the part nobody really prepares you for, because when you think about the allegations, they usually think about the legal case. How do I beat this? How do I avoid charges? How do I win at trial? But that is not the only problem. The other part is your reputation, your standing in your unit, your credibility with leadership, the way people talk about you when you are not in the room. And here is what most people get wrong. You do not rebuild your reputation after a court martial. You do not rebuild it after the investigation closes. You do not rebuild it once you finally have cleared your name. You start rebuilding it in the moment allegations are raised. One of the many big lessons I've learned in handling these cases is about reputation. If you wait until the end, you are already behind. Reputation repair is not some cleanup project afterwards. It has to be part of the strategy from day one. And if you are facing allegations right now, this is not just about looking better. It's about protecting your future, your career, your sentencing case if things go badly, and your life after the military process is over. The biggest reputation mistake is waiting until the case is over. Most accused service members make the same mistake. They think reputation is something they deal with later, after the investigation, after referral of charges, after an Article 32 preliminary hearing, after a court martial, or after the verdict. And that is dead wrong. Because while you are sitting around waiting for the legal process to unfold, your command is forming opinions. Your peers are forming opinions. Future character witnesses are forming opinions. The people who one day may judge your professionalism, your rehabilitative potential, or even your sentence are forming opinions in real time. So what do? You start immediately. If they remove you from command, you crush the staff job they give you. If they sideline you into projects, you become excellent at projects. If they stick you in some humbling duty assignment answering phones at the chapel, then you answer those phones better than anyone else has. Yeah, it sounds unfair, and it is unfair. But the point is not fairness. The point is your reputation, your credibility, your life afterwards. Here's the deal. You want people to see that even under pressure, even under the biggest pressure of your life, you still show up, you still perform, you still act like the kind of service member that they used to trust. And that conduct, the way they see it, the way they hear about it, starts rebuilding your reputation long before you sit your butt in that courtroom. Let me give you an example. My very first paying client as a civilian defense counsel was an Army commander facing an AR-15-6 investigation. In other services, that's called a commander-directed investigation. And let me tell you, the report was rough. This was not his first command. It read like it was his first command, and it read like the commander was somebody he did not even recognize. He was pulled from command, and he was given a completely different job. Many people would have thrown in the towel at this time. relief of command is devastating, especially when it's so close to the end of your tour. But reframing what needs to be done in the moment can pay dividends in the long run. In the Army, substantiated findings against a field grade officer required a board of inquiry. That's like an ADSEP for officers. And when Trial Defense Services looked at the case, they told this relieved commander that he had no chance to stay in. But that military lawyer did not know what I know, the power of reputation. Because this relieved commander started rebuilding his reputation before even responding to the adverse findings in the 15-6 investigation. We had a long-term strategy. And guess what? It worked. He was retained. And not because I'm some sort of wizard with words, but because he did not wait. So what happens if you were lucky enough to stay in your current role? The same rule applies. Keep doing your job, keep doing it well. Not because you're sucking up to somebody, not because you're performing just for optics, but because this is who you say you are. And the fastest way to rebuild trust is to act like the same professional you have always been. You cannot repair your reputation without looking hard at the facts. And here's where some people get defensive. They hear rebuild your reputation and it assumes meaning admitting guilt or rolling over. That is not what I mean. What I mean is this: even if you are innocent of the allegation charged against you, even if you are not guilty of this criminal offense, you still need to sit down with your lawyer and look hard at the facts that put you in this position in the first place. Why? Because reputation rebuild is not just about denying wrongdoing. It is about identifying vulnerabilities. Was alcohol involved? Was there risky behavior that created the conditions for this allegation to be raised against you? Was there some sort of unresolved mental health issue underneath it all? Were you hanging around the wrong people? If alcohol was involved, then you need to take that seriously, even if you think you don't have an alcohol problem. Maybe that means you stop drinking immediately. Maybe that means you get into treatment. Maybe that means you pursue help outside the military system rather than through a military program. Maybe, depending on the facts, it makes sense to engage in the military program. Maybe it doesn't. That is not a one-size-fits-all decision. That is a strategic decision you make with competent counsel based on your case, your circumstances. Here's an example. I represented an 05 at a general court-martial for aggravated assault against a senior NCO. That's a felony level crime. Luckily, he recognized alcohol was an issue before I even got brought into the case, and he stopped cold turkey. But we took a step further once I got involved. When we were waiting for court, he got regular blood tests showing he was sober the whole time. Those tests allowed us to prove with real evidence, not just his words, that he could be trusted. And guess what? He does not have a felony conviction, and he gets to keep serving our country. Looking hard at the facts applies the same with mental health. Sometimes the real issue behind all of this is not the allegation itself. The real issue might be unresolved trauma, PTSD, bad coping mechanisms, substance abuse, or reckless behavior flowing from deeper problems. And if that is what's going on, then ignoring it is not helping your defense. It actually makes things worse. Because if you ever have to show rehabilitation, if you ever need to show insight, if you ever need to prove to a judge or to members or to command that you are still worth trusting, then I identified the problem and I addressed it is a powerful position to take. Look, lazy lawyers say, wait to see what happens. Sitting on your hands is technically a strategy, but it's often the wrong one. And rebuilding your reputation, if that's your strategy, waiting puts you way behind. The people around you either help your reputation or destroy it. A lot of service members underestimate how much environment matters. Sometimes the allegation is not just about one bad night. Sometimes it's about the crowd you were around for months. The people who normalized your bad decisions. The people who incentivized reckless behavior. the people who pulled you deeper into the kind of environment where allegations become more likely. If that is part of your story, then those people need to go. You do not rebuild your reputation while staying attached to the same bad influences. You do not get credibility back while surrounding yourself with the same chaos that helped create the problem to begin with. You need to cut out the people and surround yourself with the right kind of people, period. That matters legally, that matters professionally, and it matters reputationally. Because the people watching your case, the people watching you from outside, they are not just asking what happened. They are asking who you are as a person. And who you keep around you says a lot about who you are. Sometimes reputation repair requires early strategic engagement. Another mistake people make is defaulting to the sitting on your hands approach until charges are preferred. That might sound conservative. It might sound safe. Hell, it might even save you money. But from a reputation standpoint, sometimes it is exactly the wrong move. Now, let me be clear. This is very case specific. Very, very case specific. But in some cases, one way a lawyer can help repair reputation early is by engaging early with investigators or prosecutors. Sometimes that means answering questions through counsel. Sometimes it means providing evidence through counsel. Sometimes it means showing that the accused is willing to show up in person and help clarify facts rather than just disappear under your constitutional right. To be clear, this is not something you do casually. This is not something you do because your buddy told you, just tell your side. This is not something you just go and do. This is something you decide with your lawyer very carefully based on the facts, the evidence, and the risks at play in your case. Here's an example. I had an Air Force NCO test positive for a controlled substance. That happens all the time. And most of the time, most defense attorneys say, don't say anything, don't do anything. But many times, even when there's an innocent explanation, they just want to wait. In this particular case, the right move was not to wait. The right move was engaging early. And so here's what happened. The NCO photographed his medicine cabinet showing his wife's medication that he accidentally took. He walked in on camera with his lawyer by his side and evidence in hand. And he answered questions. He provided evidence. And guess what? What could have been a years-long ordeal turned into a week-long blip in his life, allowing him to immediately fix his reputation on the front end. Let me be clear about something. I am not saying go back to investigators and weigh your rights. I am not advising you to waive your right to silence. I'm talking about getting case-specific decisions made strategically by lawyers who know what they're doing. But when done correctly, early strategic engagement can start changing how command looks at you, how investigators look at you, how prosecutors view the case, and do so much sooner rather than later. And that matters because reputation is often being shaped long before you walk into that courtroom. If you're facing military allegations right now, hear me clearly. You do not just need somebody who will fight hard against the government. You need a strategy that protects your future, your credibility, and your reputation from day one. That is what good defense work is supposed to do. And if you want help with that, watch some of my other videos that provide more clarity about strategic military defense and how to put that strategy into action. Public reputation has to be managed strategically, not emotionally. Let's talk about the online side of things because this is where families can often make things worse. Sometimes an allegation stays mostly inside the military process, but sometimes there is publicity. An arrest gets posted online. A news article goes up. Something hits social media. Maybe your name starts circulating online. When this happens, people often panic. Mom wants to defend you online. Your spouse, your wife wants to jump into the comments. Your friends want to set the record straight. Everybody thinks they're helping. But that kind of response needs to be handled strategically by someone who knows what they're doing. Not your family, not your friends, not random supporters online. Your attorney, strategically. Because once information is out in the public, you do not get to control how it spreads. And if you respond emotionally or allow your family to respond emotionally, impulsively, or sloppily, you can make the reputational damage against you much worse. In some situations, a civilian defense counsel can help provide a counter narrative in public in a way that military defense counsel simply cannot. It's not that they don't have the ability to do so, it's they're prohibited from entering into public media the way civilian defense counsel can. And that can matter when your name is already out there. But again, this needs to be strategic, not reactive, not emotional, strategic. If someone in your circle of trust says, "Let me go fix this online," the answer should be no. Your reputation strategy has to match what you actually care about. And here's something that people do not think about enough. Not every reputational problem is the same. What matters to one accused service member may be completely different for another. Maybe your biggest concern is keeping your name out of the public. Maybe your biggest concern is avoiding conviction. Maybe your biggest concern is what people in your small hometown will think because you plan to go back. Maybe you're a senior leader whose reputation matters in very public ways, long after service. Each of those are different problems, and they definitely have different solutions. If you do not understand what part of your reputation matters the most to you, then your lawyer cannot build the right strategy around it. This is where priorities matter. What do you actually care about protecting? What does life look like for you after this process is over? Where will you live? Who do you need to be credible with? What future are you trying to preserve? Those answers shape the strategy that you need to take. Because reputation repair is not just about winning everything. It's about protecting the parts of your life that actually matter most to you. All right, let's talk about character evidence. Character evidence is not a trick. It is a reputation rebuild in real time. One of the most important parts of rebuilding your reputation is continuing to do good work with good people so that they can later stand up and say, this is who the person really is. Character evidence matters in findings. It matters in sentencing. It matters whether you are found guilty, not guilty, or even if you plead guilty to something. And in the military, this matters more because if you are convicted at a court-martial, sentencing happens right away, not months later like in a civilian court. Right away, which means from jump, you are building both your findings case and your sentencing case at the same time. That is why continuing to perform, continuing to act with character, and continuing to build real credibility during the process matters so much. And by the way, a good character evidence strategy is not just about getting one or two people to say nice things about you. It is about showing the breadth of who you are across ranks, across timelines, across different settings, across different kinds of relationships. That is what makes the picture credible. Recently, I had a senior prosecutor try to tear down a witness on the stand for supporting my client, and it backfired miserably. The prosecutor honed in on one clause in one sentence of a character letter written by that witness. That sentence, that clause, recognized the negative aspects of the offense. And the witness said, "Yeah, but did you read the rest of the letter?" I'm not sure if anybody laughed out loud, but I definitely giggled on the inside. And the judge's face confirmed he was thinking the same thing. Yes, character evidence matters. But here's the critical part. You should not be asking for letters, especially if you outrank the people you would be asking. Because the second you start asking subordinates or junior members to write letters for you, it can look coercive. Even if you would never intend it that way, even if that is not your character at all, the optics are terrible. Getting character evidence should be handled by your defense counsel, and a good defense team should gather those contacts, reach out appropriately, and manage that process for you. Because again, reputation rebuild is not just about the substance, it's also about how things look. The final step is letting go. And this is the part people hate, especially once they're acquitted at trial. Because after false allegations happen, after years of stress, after your name gets dragged through the mud, after your family suffers, after your career gets derailed, what people want at the end is often revenge. They want to sue somebody. They want to sue the accuser. They want to sue the government. Hell, they may want to sue the command for believing the lies. Sue whoever made their life miserable. And look, emotionally, I understand. But reputationally, that is not how you move forward. The final step in rebuilding your reputation is letting go. Not because what happened to you was okay. Not because you deserved to be brought through this process. Not because the system treated you fairly. It probably didn't. But because staying attached to revenge keeps you trapped in the worst chapter of your life. The real way to rebuild your reputation is to move on, prove who you are through conduct, and get back to doing meaningful things in great ways. Move past those false allegations. Do not let them define you. That is how people start to trust you. That is how people start to trust you like they used to. Not because you forced them to, but because you showed them who you truly are. Okay, so here's what we covered today. I showed you why reputation repair starts immediately, not after the case is over. I broke down why your conduct, your job performance, and your professionalism matter from day one. I explained why you need to look honestly at the facts that put you in this position, addressing underlying issues like alcohol or mental health, cut off bad influences, and manage public reputation strategically instead of emotionally. And I showed you why character evidence and real-world conduct are part of rebuilding trust long before a verdict ever comes down. But here's the bigger point. Reputation is not rebuilt with words. It is rebuilt with disciplined action, over time, under pressure. And if you are facing military allegations right now, the opportunity to rebuild has already started. If you are trying to protect your career, your future, and your reputation after military allegations have come out against you, you need a strategy that starts on day one, not after the damage is done. In a different video, I break down how strategic military defense changes depending what you actually care about most, because not every service member should fight a case the same way. Do not miss that video. Thanks, and have a great day.